Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today's episode is for sure going to be a fun one. We're talking about 10 ways to avoid making dumb mistakes in your business. And if you're listening to the show and you're an entrepreneur, you probably made all of the 10 mistakes. You probably made a bajillion mistakes if you're anything like me. And it sounds like our guests as well. So we're going to have fun with this episode, help you stop making dumb mistakes, but at least we can learn from them, right? Bill Holston, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm glad to be here too.
So you wrote a book, and the topic here is ways to avoid dumb mistakes in your business. I have a sneaking suspicion you've probably made a couple of mistakes, and maybe this was a personal self-help book more than for the general public. Why don't you walk me through that?
Yeah, sure. My background, I was a corporate marketer and innovation leader, and then I did a side gig for 10 years where I was inventing and marketing carnival games. And all of my dumb mistakes happened in my carnival game business, including the very first one. I made it out of wood, sold 60 of them, and then they all fell apart because it's not fit for purpose. Dumb mistake. Then when I was done with doing that business, I went into the innovation side of my corporate life and was trained on things like design thinking and empathizing with customer experience and user experience. What I did in writing the book was to put together the 10 tools from my workshopping experience in my corporate life and translate them into things people around their kitchen tables or with their small companies can do by themselves. So it is a book I wish existed when I was in the entrepreneurial space in the game business so I could avoid my own mistakes. They fall into 4 buckets. In the book, can I name it or we'll talk about it later?
Yeah, please. No, let's dive into it.
The book, I'll hold it up, but it's called Avoid Unintentional Blunders That Derail Entrepreneurial Success and Goof-Proof Your Business. Those 10 tools wind up falling into 4 buckets. These are a few tools that help you analyze yourself and understand your own tendencies. Those that help you understand your customers much better, so you might design or give them a service that meets their needs better. It's about your business itself, so you can take a look at what could go wrong in your business plan. And then one of my favorites is looking at the external world out there. Warren Buffett once said, it's good to learn from mistakes, but it's better to learn from someone else's mistakes. So let me talk about one of those first. I call it uh-oh-ology. And it is kind of a pseudoscience of how to look at others' big mistakes and learn from them and apply them to your company. One example of a big blunder written about in the book is about skydiver Ivan McGuire. In the 80s, he was asked, he's a very experienced skydiver and instructor. He was asked to film another student and instructor jumping out of the plane after him. So he got, this is before GoPros and smartphones. So he strapped the camera onto himself, went in the plane, and at 10,000 feet, they gave each other a thumbs up. Ivan jumps out, turns on the camera, looks up, gives a beautiful shot of them jumping, pulling their ripcords, and their parachutes open. Then Ivan reached for his own ripcord and only then realized he forgot it. So the camera caught his voice saying, "Oh my God, no," as he actually fell to his death. Tragic, tragic, tragic. Most of your listeners are not skydivers, but there are lessons to be done there. With this uh-oh-ology tool, there are 2 steps: to observe and understand what happened, and then to think and apply. And the key question for small businesses now is, what one step that is critical to your business, if you forgot it only once, could be tragic for your business? Could it be not locking up at night? Could it be forgetting to renew an insurance policy? or something to deal with a key customer. There are things people can think of in their own minds. What is that one step? And then how do you avoid doing that? You can place reminders. You can ask people to remind you. You put systems in place, fail safe. You can build in redundancies. There's lots of things you can do. That's a shocking example. Another one of the 10 tools is to look at your own tendencies. And the tool in the book is called Look in the Mirror. And I'll describe a free way you can get it in a second. That is, it encourages you to imagine, think of your own experience. And you do this by yourself. You're not sharing it because it's embarrassing. Your own experience in the last 12 months. How many of these dumb mistakes did you make when you're honest with yourself? My own research tells me 95% of people have at least one, and a third of them have done 5 or more. So it is prevalent, it's out there. So you look at your own mistakes, you write them down, and then you compare it to the list of, in the book, there's a full list of possible causes like stress, inattention, distraction, being in a bad mood, being overtired. You look at each of your dumb mistakes, recall and circle what were those reasons, and then you begin to look at patterns of the 2, 3, 4, 5 mistakes you made in the year. What cause seems to come up more often? Once you know that in my own case, it's stress and inattention while I was an entrepreneur, you can then put in place reminders or other things to remind you when you get in that stressed mode or you feel exhausted again, what to watch out that should trigger at that time to keep you from making stupid mistakes. Sometimes it's just taking a walk outside in fresh air and then coming back to it. So those are 2 of the 10 tools. Others include, when you're thinking of your business, you can do a pre-mortem. A post-mortem, of course, is when somebody dies and the pathologist looks and finds out the cause of death. A pre-mortem is a free imagination exercise where you and your partner, you and your small staff sit down and you think it's 2 to 5 years from now and your business has, you imagine, utterly failed. It's crashed and burned. You then creatively think, what were the causes that caused it to crash and burn? There's no risk here. Nothing really happened. So then you identify those and you kind of cobble them together into a prioritized list. Some of those will be realistic, and you'll then come up with plans. How might I avoid number 1, number 2, number 3? So you set in motion today things that can help you avoid the envisioned failure. And in doing so, you could also learn where might the dumb mistakes fall in.
That's interesting. I'm curious about that one because from a psychological perspective, I'm sure you've heard, have you heard the story? I forget where I heard it, but there was this person driving on a long desert road and there's literally nothing there. The road is straight except there's telephone poles every 100 feet. And after a while they just got bored. So they started looking at the telephone poles and you know it, boom, their car's in a telephone pole. They were focused on that thing. And even though it was the outcome they wanted to avoid, it was what they were looking at and they ended up hitting it with no other reason to hit it. In that exercise, do you ever offset that with let's look at the positives and say like, what could possibly go right? And we could chase that success too. Or is it just, hey, we know this and let's hope we don't go there?
It's both and. Of course, the book's about avoiding the negatives. You can use the same tool to see what did you do right 2 to 5 years from now, and then plan to do more of that. The situation you were just describing with telephone poles, I've seen another example. It was called situational blindness, where you were so zoned out from the surroundings that you just totally missed signals. In the case I read about, it was a bus driver who totally missed the low bridge sign coming up, and he ripped off the top of his bus and people got hurt.
Oh, yeah. That's unfortunately common in not just driving, but in life. And I think, is that kind of what happened in the skydiving example too? Because, you have a very experienced skydiver. They probably have their own quote unquote pre-flight checklist, if you will, where he's checking his straps and his backpack and his parachute. But he was so focused on, well, I have to film it this time, which was probably out of the norm. Like, what do you take from that story? What was the big avoidable mistake for him that we're probably doing in some cases in our business? Maybe it's a new product launch, or maybe it's a speaking event, or it could be a podcast. Who knows? But what are the takeaways there for you?
Take a look at the big picture. Take a step back before you jump in like that. In his case, the news reports and the analysis afterwards suggested that this film camera strapped onto him was about the weight and size of a parachute. So he might have forgotten. There are fail-safes, and even in the reports I read, the pilot is responsible that everybody has a parachute on if they're on a jumping plane. The two people he was with might have noticed, hey, Ivan, where's your parachute, before this happened. So for me, it's take a step back, have somebody else help you do a double check. These are stupid things. So how do you avoid stupid things? Rely on yourself, rely on others.
Yeah.
I'll be producing sometime this year and offering on my website little stickers that say, think smartly, or think smartly, be more aware, which are the two lessons there to avoid these uh-ohs. You might have them and just stick them on the doorway as you're going out, so you don't forget to lock up the shop, or whatever your potential disastrous forgetting move is.
Yeah.
By the way,
that.
The tool I mentioned that's free, the one I described looking at your own tendencies, called Look in the Mirror in the book, is available as a downloadable PDF from my website. It's got a different title for the download. It's called Why the F Did I Do That? And if you go to williamholston.com, thanks for putting it on the screen, you'll see on the left side there's the book, click to buy. On the right is this PDF, click to just download free.
I like it. You're definitely not shying away from maybe blunt language, which I like, because in these scenarios, the outcome get your attention. I'm curious if you have a tool based on what I just heard with the skydiving example. You said zoom out, right? Which I fully believe in, and I can see how that's applicable in most scenarios. But you said, so first the skydiver himself was responsible. He had that point of failure where he thought he had it on based on the weight. Okay, that's fine. Could we take a little bit more responsibility and say, did he go through a checklist? No. Okay, well, that would have solved that problem. But then you said the pilot was responsible. It sounds like that point of failure failed. And then the co-jumper and the student were also responsible to a degree, and they failed. So we have 3, if not more, points of failure that all failed simultaneously. How do we, can we get to fail-proof ultimately? It sounds like that's the goal of your book. The subtitle, you said goof-proof your business, right? But those are multiple, very, very distinct points of failure that are seemingly disconnected, and they all broke at the same time. So how do we zoom out far enough to prevent stuff like that?
It's a great question, and I'll think while I'm talking. The way you described that was it reminds me of what the psychologist James Reason at Cambridge University did. He talked about the comedy of errors, the perfect storm, where this one should have worked, that one should have worked, and all of them do. So he called it the Swiss cheese model, where all the holes coincidentally align, and then something's disaster. His advice in his book called Human Error was all about being more aware yourself, so you're not prone to those kind of things happening to you. Do disaster checks. In the skydiver's point, he had jumped hundreds of times, so this was nothing new to him, but the camera was. So maybe when there's a new element, be hyper aware of how things might change.
Yeah, no, that's good advice, and that's why air travel is one of the most safe forms of travel, because pilots have to do their pre-flight checklist and they have to report it. You don't do that when you get into a car. I have seen pilots do it, although that's kind of funny, but bus drivers don't do it. Train operators don't do it. I mean, you think about all the things that could go wrong in the air versus in a car. Why don't we do that sort of stuff? But the model is similar. Mm-hmm. Goof proof your whatever you're doing, and you have a higher likelihood of success. Is that really the methodology behind your book?
Yes, a higher likelihood there's no guarantees, and it's all up to your own actions to put these things to use to your best ability. You mentioned checklists. One of the other tools, I give a reasonably robust discussion of checklists. And in my research, I found that yes, airlines and operating rooms in hospitals are big checklist users, and there's an art to putting together an effective checklist about making it simple and having only the essential steps. If your list is 3 pages long and 50 steps, and you have to do it, you'll never do it. But if it's these 3 things, that can really help you.
Yeah, that's a great tip right there. I like that. So there's 10 tools in the book. I think we only went through 2 or 3 of them. You offered the free checklist, which is on the website, which is on the screen, and then the show notes down below. Who do you hope goes and buys a copy of the book? Are there certain types of entrepreneurs that you've helped that seem to get a lot out of it, or is it really all of us need this help?
I'd love it if everybody bought it, but it's written with startups and entrepreneurs or entrepreneur inventors. That's what I was in mind. So people who are entering a new industry or a new segment or reaching a new customer. You can make a million mistakes just because of your ignorance. I was ignorant and inept, but just because you don't know what you don't know, it's dangerous. So I've become a big user of AI. Before I, write the next chapter or something, I'm going to chat and see what else might I think about here. So there are tools you can use. Another tool is using mentors, experts, and naive observers. Mentors, I'm a SCORE mentor myself. People like me are available for free. Go to score.org to help you think through your business planning, and also to identify where you might screw up, in my words. An expert, if you really need to know, I needed to know material science for my pitch burst, my dunk tank game. I didn't know it. I might have at that time gone and found one, paid money for it. A third is naive observers. Think like a child or get a child. I'm thinking of doing this. What questions do you have? That's how I use AI now, but because it's much more informed. But you might get somebody who knows nothing about what you're doing and see if to them it makes common sense. Many of these ask other people. Things are free. And an observation from my research, many entrepreneurs are solopreneurs and have this feeling of loneliness and that they don't have any help. It's a matter of finding it and asking for it. And AI can point out, here's who you might ask. And SCORE can help too, but we're not the only ones.
Yeah, I like that. The other thing I thought of, so obviously startups, anytime you're looking to scale, that's a huge inflection point that, I typically work with companies who are in that scaling mode. You're bringing on, in most cases, a lot of new expense in people, maybe infrastructure. You're going out to the marketplace, a whole lot that could go wrong that is sometimes hard to anticipate. So having these 10 tools at your disposal is probably really smart. So go grab a copy of the book. Bill, thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it, Brendan. It's been great meeting you. Good luck to everybody.
For those of you watching and listening, all of that and more is in the show notes down below. Go check it out. We'll see you back on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.